Hello and welcome to Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, and the gorgeous, the former... I get very excited whenever I see him. The former Chelsea, Benfica, West Ham, Charlton left back, 1997 FA Cup winner and model for next. It's Scott Minto. This is what's coming up on the show. That smacks as a kid that's got some serious work to do on themselves.
Well, first of all, it's a PR car crash. To come out and try and lie about it is almost laughing in the face of the fans that he claims to be one.
But is he? Is he acting like one? Or has he become a prima donna?
If he thinks it's acceptable to go out partying in a different country the night before your due at training, then I think he has to take a long, hard look at his life choices. In the moment, he's wasting his talent.
They are scenes that we thought were eradicated from this country. But if you're going to kick off a game at 11:45 and people still can't behave, well, actually, you can't allow anything to open before it's supposed to. You can't do it.
Tottenham have got this great record against Manchester City. Well, it had to end at some time.
It's interesting, isn't it, that Ange Postecoglou has been lauded with so much praise this season for the way that Spurs have been brave in games, the football they've played. Well, here we are, not the end of January, and they've got no chance of winning anything again.
When we look back at Manchester City, obviously they've managed to play 10 games now without Erling Haaland. They've scored 28 goals during that period and are unbeaten. They haven't exactly missed him, have they?
I think he's leaving Liverpool in a better place than Fergie left United.
I mean, you've been waxing lyrical about Liverpool. I still don't think they'll win the league, so I don't think Klopp is going to go out in a blaze of glory like Fergie did.
Hello, everyone. Yes, no Premier League this weekend, so plenty of action from the FA Cup. I know, Crook, that you were otherwise engaged on Sunday, weren't you? You were doing prime-time television, Dancing on Ice.
I was stepping into your skating shoes. Think I got us fired, so all good.
Well done.
Sorry, Sam, do you two come as a package in everything? So not just in football, but in entertainment as well?
Absolutely. Scott, but what the problem is that I think he's actually gone a little bit over my head here and become cheesier than I am, which is on the evidence of Sunday night. That is a qualification that now he has, the cheesiest man.
Anyway,
yeah, well, I don't even know what that is, but anyway, it must be something to do with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I'm guessing. It was when he attempted to do the Austin Powers thing that really caused concern for most of the UK, actually, because it was quite creepy. Rather than sort of Austin Powers, it was kind of a little bit like, well, no, listen, why don't you just do it for us, and then we can all decide for ourselves.
Yes, quickly do it for us.
It's very early in the morning to pull it out again, but I think it was something like, "Oh, behave."
Yeah, really creepy. I was right first time. Not much transfer news knocking around, so we're going to look back on some of the big games, and there were some big games this weekend. I did Manchester City Friday night. I did West Brom on Saturday. You were at Charlton, weren't you, at the weekend? I saw, Scott, as well. And you did Chelsea Aston Villa as well. So we're getting to all of that, because that Chelsea Aston Villa game, that's gone to a replay. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I doubt Villa really wanted a replay, bearing in mind that their commitments in the Conference League, and Chelsea with the cup final coming up as well, and having had those two-legged semi-finals as well, probably don't want one either. Let's talk first of all, though, about the two Manchester Giants, starting off on Friday night at the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So Tottenham's trophy cabinet is going to stay bare again because they waved goodbye to the FA Cup. Did they give it enough of a go, Scott? Because well, the truth is they didn't really test the goalkeeper.
No, they didn't. And, just looking at the stats, I'm not all about stats, obviously, but 18 shots to 1 and 5 on target to 1. It does suggest that, I think it does suggest as well that even if it's the game's level, Manchester City is so good in terms of having possession on the ball, both defensively and offensively. Look, it's one of those games where we talked about it beforehand that, Tottenham have got this great record against Manchester City. Well, it had to end at some time. You could turn around and say that they should have dealt with the goal better and therefore taken it back to the Etihad. But look, City were in full control of this game. And as you say, Spurs didn't really lay a glove.
That was a point of contention, wasn't it, afterwards, whether or not the goalkeeper's gloves were impeded as he tried to clear the ball, Crook. He's got to be stronger, though, right?
Yeah, I think it was less of a foul than the one that we saw in the Burnley-Luton game a few weeks back, and I guess that sort of set the bar for VAR intervention. So I think you're right. I think the goalkeeper, who actually has had a decent season, needs to be better. And I think Scott's right. You can't argue with the result on the balance of play. Arguably, City should have won by more. And it's interesting, isn't it, that Ange Postecoglou has been lauded with so much praise this season for the way that Spurs have been brave in games, the football they've played. Well, here we are, not the end of January, and they've got no chance of winning anything again. So Spurs fans are used to that feeling. I just wonder if we might have gone a little bit too early with the Ange Postecoglou loving.
Yeah, well, we did say right at the beginning, just calm down and see what happens over the course of the season. But there's no doubt he's had a positive impact as far as Tottenham are concerned. The one thing that Ali McCoy turned to me and said straight afterwards, actually, was, I wonder now whether or not he'll regret playing that weakened team in the League Cup. Because, you go back to that game against Fulham, that was there for the taking. He played a scratch side in that game, not a scratch side, but a reserve side in that game when they'd started the season so well, ended up losing on penalties in the match. And as a result of that, they haven't been able to chase. There hasn't been a third piece of silverware to chase. And without Europe, they could have gone and tried to scrap for that. But then I suppose they'll point to the fact they had so many injuries afterwards that it was probably a good thing for them in the end. When we look back at Manchester City, obviously they've managed to play 10 games now without Erling Haaland. They've scored 28 goals during that period and are unbeaten, Scott. So they haven't exactly missed him, have they?
No, he's they're not bad, are they? And they weren't bad without Kevin De Bruyne as well, which again shows that as much as you sort of talk about these world-class players, and these are world-class, no one can argue with the term world-class with these two. They've got such a good squad and such a good mentality that they're able to, even without their best players, still go on and win the game. And look, just on Ange, I don't think anyone can blame him losing to Manchester City. I do agree the League Cup, he might slightly regret that, but it's still massively in the positive considering where they were less than 12 months ago and still fighting for fourth place as well. So look, I'm still, I don't want to say supporters of Ange being ex-Chelsea and West Ham, but I think he's made a massive impact. But yeah, it's another year without a trophy.
The thing about having Kevin De Bruyne back is that he brings you so much creativity. He gives you so many opportunities to score a goal. And look, he took the corner, which eventually ended up in the back of the net. Maybe that is not an accident. Maybe it just happened to be this time around. But the one thing he also gives you, and I don't think you noticed this, he comes on, he's horrible, right? He is horrible. So he comes on and he chases the ball into the bottom right-hand corner with Mickey van der Ven. And he really gets up for it, and he gives the linesman a little bit, and he gives the referee a little bit, and he gives Mickey van der Ven a little bit, gives him a few words in his ears, and he's encouraged by the Man City fans behind the goal. And I remember speaking to him ages and ages ago, maybe 18 months ago, and I said to him, sometimes you do get a little bit feisty when you're on the pitch. And he goes, I know, it's embarrassing, isn't it? He said, but I can't help it. He said, I'm really a competitive guy. Like, even when I'm playing with my kids sometimes, I won't ever let them win. Like, I can't let them win anything. I get really into it, and it doesn't matter what it is. If it's like a penalty shootout in the garden, or we're playing Ludo, or we're playing a game on the PlayStation, I have to win. And I get really I have this fire inside me. He said, when I'm off the field or I'm not playing games of any sort, I'm actually quite a nice bloke. He said, but I'm really horrible when I'm on the pitch, and I don't know why I can't control it. I've always been like it. And I thought, you sort of need that, I think, if you're going to be a top player.
Do you know what, Sam? I played with Mark Hughes at Chelsea, and very quiet off the field. When we were travelling, he'd sit at the front of the bus, wouldn't really sort of get involved as such. But I mean, we were still like, wow, this is Mark Hughes at Chelsea. But when he was on the pitch, my goodness me, I mean, Crookie can testify that how good he was for United. And he was pretty much the same for Chelsea as well. One of the most aggressive people that you just don't want to play against, and you've had is in his side. Kevin De Bruyne doesn't want to change. He shouldn't because it's making him the world-class player he is.
Okay, so a few positives there. So let's turn to the negatives. New Park County 2, Manchester United 4. And Manchester United got the job done in the end, but I'm just leaving it at that. They got the job done because they struggled to get past Newport, really. I mean, it's quite frankly. I mean, the fact is that at one point someone said, I think what my kid's a Manchester United fan. He was wearing his Manchester United kit. the white one. He's saying, look, they're wearing the same kit as me, Dad. I was like, I don't know if you'll be telling everybody that. They scored the third goal, and he was like, when they scored the second goal, it was a really good goal, by the way, Newport, and he was really disappointed. I was like, that is a brilliant goal, and he's like, ugh. Anyway, but then the third goal went in, and he relaxed a little bit, and like, okay, fine. But I was like, they're 16th in League Two, fella, and they haven't had a chairman all season. They haven't had a CEO all season. They've got no budget and £1.5 million black hole. Yet they are taking it to you, and it's not like it was a scratch Manchester United side, Crook. It was pretty embarrassing, I thought. But more embarrassing and more concerning than anything else is the absence of Marcus Rashford, who was left out of the squad for this game. Now, he was pictured in a Belfast nightclub the night before a training session. They first of all told us that it was, I don't know if they told us or his camp told us that it was the night before, but it wasn't. And there's timestamp photographs to prove that it wasn't. He was in a nightclub the night before he was supposed to be training. He flew back on a private jet and then was too ill to train and didn't make the trip to Newport. I mean, I don't know which one of you wants to go first, but that smacks as a kid that's got some serious work to do on themselves.
Well, first of all, it's a PR car crash. To come out and try and lie about it and claim the images were 24 hours earlier than they are is unforgivable, really. And even before the game, we get the briefing from Manchester United that Marcus is too ill to travel. Just stop lying. He's been caught red-handed. Ten Hag has come out and actually gone against the face of the club statement and said it's an internal matter, I'm dealing with it. I think Marcus Rashford now is at a turning point of his career. It's a sliding doors moment in his career. Either he learns from this mistake, and I don't think this is his first misdemeanour by any stretch of the imagination, or he goes down a very slippery path, which will result in him not fulfilling the talent that he has. I think it's quite sad, actually, that someone with his natural ability, representing the club that he claims to have supported since he was a boy, is almost laughing in the face of the fans that he claims to be one. He's laughing in the face of his teammates. He's laughing in the face of his manager. If he thinks it's acceptable to go out partying in a different country the night before you're due at training, then I think he has to take a long, hard look at his life choices. And as I say, I don't think this is a one-off. It's not a coincidence that Marcus Rashford's form since last season has tailed off so badly. He's not become that bad a footballer overnight. So clearly he's not making the right decisions off the pitch, and he needs somebody close to him who's got his best interests at heart to get him back on track, because at the moment he's wasting his talent.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like that, because we can all pretend and sit here and say that, we think it was a one-off and an indiscretion, but I think we all know that isn't the case, and that is probably at the heart of the problem here. And listen, I think it's been going on for too long, Scott. I think someone inside that club now has got to grab hold of the situation and sort it out, because otherwise he is not going to fulfill his potential. I mean, he hasn't been fulfilling his potential over the course of the last year or so. So, Manchester United, they've got a major asset here. They gave him a huge contract. They've got to manage that talent properly. And he's got to stand up and be counted himself and realise what he's got, because, this is an unacceptable turn of events. No,
absolutely. Back in my day, it was a bonbonnie on a Wednesday night rather than flying to Belfast in a private jet. But that was in the 90s.
But it was a Wednesday, not a Thursday.
It was a Wednesday, although it was a Sunday game. No, look, the game's moved on a lot since then. And Marcus Rashford is a superstar. He's a Manchester United superstar. He's an England superstar. He's on big, big money that's expected now to help be one of the leaders for Manchester United to take them back to where they are. He's a Manchester-born kid. He should be feeling for this club more than anyone else and feeling for the fans. He's a fan himself. But is he? Is he acting like one? Or has he become a prima donna? And I think, we talked about his goals last season. I mentioned at the end of the season, well, you can't rely on his goals because he is a player that actually goes in streaks. Even last season, the amount of numbers over the whole season was great, but it was actually in streaks. But the bigger picture here, as you just touched on, both of you have really, is what's going on inside his head. Does he feel like he can do whatever he wants? Does he feel like he's too big for Manchester United? And Eric Ten Hag, for all his failures, he's perhaps not the little ball genius anymore, but he is trying to do the right thing. He needs support. He needs support from the club, and he actually needs support from Marcus Rashford's family and agents as well. They need to get round him and start telling him, listen, you need to be I hate the term role model, because I personally don't think footballers should be role models, but he is, and they are, and we have to accept that. So how he leads his life off the pitch, whether he was drinking or whether he wasn't, is not the right thing to do. So there's no doubt about it, he's at the crossroads of his career. It will be interesting to see what Manchester United do. If he wasn't worth so much, they would get rid. But I'm fascinated to see what's going to happen between now and the end of the season, and in the summer as well, if his form continues to how it's been all season.
Yeah, I think his agent and his family are one of the same things, which is it's sometimes a really good thing, and sometimes it does mean that you can be a little bit too close to it. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not that continues. But someone's got to step in and do something, because otherwise we're going to be in a situation where you've got an incredibly talented England footballer, an incredibly talented Manchester United footballer that doesn't end up delivering what he should do. The other issue you've got here is if Marcus Rashford, he's been getting away with this sort of behaviour over the course of the last year or so. You've got Jadon Sancho turns up late for one meeting and ends up being expelled and sent to Dortmund. You've got other players that are looking at him and thinking, well, if he can do it, then I can get away with it. And then sometimes that can spread. That behaviour sort of becomes almost like, not the norm, but like there's other people who try to get away with other things, and the discipline within the group actually goes crook.
Yeah, and actually, it's a really good point you've made, because when people close to Jadon Sancho were suggesting that he feels that he has been victimised when players who perhaps are not performing or not conducting themselves in the best way are being given preferential treatment, we all assume that they were directing that towards Anthony. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they were directing it towards Marcus Rashford. I've got to say, he can't turn around and say he's not had the support of Eric Ten Hag. Ten Hag has been more lenient with Rashford than he would have been with any other player, and more lenient than a lot of Premier League managers would have been. But that lack of discipline is not just off the pitch, it's on the pitch as well, because Bruno Fernandes was right what he said after the game. They go 2-0 up, they're coasting against a League Two side. They think they can start to take liberties. Garnacho in particular seemed desperate to score a goal at all costs, when actually if he had better decision-making, he could have teed up his teammates to put United 3 or 4 up before Newport even got that goal to get them back in the game. Anthony was the same. So that lack of discipline that we've seen from Rashford off the pitch, I think often also takes place on the pitch, particularly with those young players like Garnacho, who will be influenced by what Marcus Rashford is doing.
Absolutely, and that's a big problem. I think Manchester United are through to the next round of the competition. Who have they got in the next round? They've got another easy
Bristol City or Forest away.
Oh, that's going to be a tough one, because Bristol City are very, very good at home, and Nottingham Forest, well, let's see if they get through. But if Bristol City get through, that'd be a hell of a day done at Ashton Gray. Let's move on to the other action from the weekend, starting on Saturday, and a big game at Portman Road. Ipswich 1, Maidstone 2. Wow. I mean, this is a perfect example of why the FA Cup is still the competition that it is. It's a great situation where this couldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen anywhere else, but it does happen in the FA Cup. Maidstone of the 6th tier, taking on 2nd tier Ipswich and beating them on their own patch. I mean, it was not the greatest game of quality, Scott, but it was an exciting game for the reasons outlined, which was, I don't know how they did it, really, to be honest with you. I think they got... I really don't. I mean, even watching the game, I was like, how are they in this situation? But it's great. And then what a fantastic situation they've got themselves in. They've got the opportunity to go to Sheffield Wednesday or Coventry next in order to maybe even get through to a quarter-final of the FA Cup.
Absolutely, and with the greatest respect to them, if you can go to Portman Road and Ipswich, seconds in the Championship, then why can't you go to one of those two and go through to the quarterfinals? Who knows? I mean, I was listening to it on the way to the Valley. I was covering the Charlton game for Charlton, but I listened to Joe Shannon and Matt Holland, and they were saying this could be 5-0 within 15 minutes quite easily. So, Ipswich have only got themselves to blame. And again, looking at the stats, 78% possession, 38 shots to 2. 13 on target to 2. So you can certainly say Maidstone were clinical and Ipswich weren't. But, forget the stats. This is all about the FA Cup. This is all what we want. And we spoke about it last week, didn't we? That really Ipswich would prefer probably not to be in the FA Cup, but you can't afford to lose to a sixth-tier team. And yet that's exactly what they've done. But look, fair play to, it's fair enough to say that Kieran McKenna's got enough credit in the bank to say it doesn't really matter, and they can crack on with the Championship now. But for George Elokobi, this is just brilliant. The magic goes on.
And George was brilliant afterwards, wasn't he? Like, it was brilliant afterwards in the last round. He's been very sort of accessible over the course of this entire run, and he's a brilliant orator. I think he's fantastic, really, and he's a good bloke. But the one thing about the FA Cup, I don't know how you can level the playing field like this in this competition, and yet I know Ipswich made changes. I saw that. But there was an opportunity here for one or two of those players, especially Nathan Broadhead, for example, right, to audition for a place in the team because Hurst has picked up an injury. They need a focal point. Broadhead goes and plays up front. And yet there was one moment, especially towards the end, where the corner comes in. Broadhead tries to get up and glance it on because there's a great opportunity. And he heads the ball just up in the air. And you just think, this is your chance. This is your spotlight. What is it? Does it get to you? Is it like do you think it's like the sort of the fact that the cameras are there and that all eyes are on you? Is it that fear that you could be the victims of the FA Cup shock of this season? I don't know. But something paralyzes players, I think, sometimes in this competition. And I think it must be that sort of trepidation that you're going to be on the back pages for the wrong reasons.
I think fear comes into it. I mean, if you look at that United Newport game, once they got back to 2-2, there was a 10-minute spell when Newport really were the dominant force, and the United players looked absolutely petrified that they could be on the back pages for all the wrong reasons. And it was the same at Portman Road. I do think it was smash and grab from Maidstone. If this game gets played 100 times, probably 97 times out of 100, Ipswich take those chances and they win. But credit to them, as you say, George Elokobi's been brilliant. I thought the scenes on the team coach as they joined the guys on the phone in on Saturday night was brilliant as well, and what the FA Cup is all about. I think they'll be slightly disappointed, Newport, that they've got all the way to the round of 16 and they haven't got that draw against a Premier League club. Yes, it's great to go to Portman Road. Ipswich, obviously, former Cup winners. It'll be great if they can go to Hillsborough or if they play Coventry again, former Cup winners. But you feel for them because they deserve one opportunity at least to take on a Premier League side and get that big draw.
Yeah, Maidstone will be a little bit disappointed that they haven't got a trip to Old Trafford or to the Etihad. But I think at the same time, there is that in the back of your mind. By the way, the CBS Arena is a really nice stadium to go to, by the way. Sutton Hillsborough is historic. Fulham against Newcastle finished 2-0 in favour of Eddie Howe's team. They're still on course for a trophy, which is good. I think they needed that. And they've got a draw away at either Blackburn or Wrexham. That game hasn't been sorted yet. I'm doing that on Monday night. Which is a great draw. Listen, if it's Wrexham, it's a Hollywood draw. If it's Blackburn, it's going to be a tussle at Ewood Park. But let's talk about Fulham, Scott, because it's been a bad week at the office for them. They've gone out of two competitions in the same week. Obviously, the Carabao Cup game they put everything into, and that was we were there. It was a good game. Fulham did well actually to come back into it when we thought they might crumble after conceding the early goal. But to go out of two competitions in a week, did he make a mistake by making so many changes?
No, I must admit, I do feel he needed to make some changes. We were there at the Cottage, as you say, and I thought that they were unlucky in the end, and they had Liverpool on the back foot. Liverpool ended up being a 5-4-1 formation. And that takes a lot out of you mentally and physically. So I did sort of say, and again, we talked about it on the pod, didn't we? And Crookie and I thought that Newcastle would go on and win this. For me, purely on a physical level. Fulham haven't got a deep enough squad to make lots of changes and then crack on again. But if they'd have played the same players, then I don't think that it would have been the same sort of performance level that you saw in the second half at the Cottage against Liverpool. So I think they're always going to struggle in this game. And I think that the fact that Newcastle and how much they want to win a trophy, I'm really pleased for Eddie Howe. I think I think what we're seeing now is what he's up against from a financial point of view. It's not the richest club in the world. They are having to deal with FFP. They are having to sell before they buy. So, lay off him a little bit. So for him to go into the next round, much as I like Fulham as a club, I'm really pleased for Newcastle that they are in the next round of that. And it was a very good win in the end.
gonna say that I thought that actually Fulham were the better team for large parts of this game. I thought that Newcastle did well on the counter attack and took their chances well, but actually for a long time in the match, it was just about Fulham not being able to find the back of the net, which has been a problem for them over the course of the season. They score in rashes. I've mentioned it a load of times when we've done Fulham commentaries. They scored 16 goals over 4 games at the end of November, beginning of December. But apart from that, goals have been few and far between. Crook Newcastle and the PRS stuff or the PSR stuff has sort of come up time and again over the last week or so. Where are we with that? And is it still likely that they're going to have to sell one of the crown jewels during this period? Because a lot of talk about Callum Wilson. I mean, to me, if Callum Wilson is available for 18 million quid, right, and I'm Chelsea or I'm another club that needs a striker,
West
even if
Ham.
you get 18 months out of him, I mean, that's a fantastic deal, I think.
Yeah, and Eddie Howe did leave it open-ended, didn't he, when he was asked about the future of certain players before this game. He was pretty staunch that Trippier wouldn't be going anywhere, wants to keep Almer on, and ideally would like to keep Callum Wilson, but did say, we're in a situation where if somebody comes in with a bid, then we are susceptible to it. And I think Callum possibly is looking at one last big transfer, 31 years of age now. There's been talk of Saudi Arabia, although I know when he was approached in the summer, he wasn't particularly keen on that. I can see West Ham because there's a strong connection between the people who represent Callum Wilson and that particular football club. So I think that's one to keep an eye on between now and Thursday.
Okay, we've only got a few days to go before we have the transfer window close again, and it's been probably the easiest month of work that you've had, right?
Well, I'm off to Plumpton Races today, so that probably tells you I'm not expecting too much to happen.
Do you know what, Sam? I was with him at the bridge on Friday night and actually said, has your golf handicap improved? Because you have hardly had to work this month, have you? So interested in doing the races today.
It's amazing, isn't it? And we talked about it ages ago. We said that this would happen, that there would be a sort of deflation in the market because of the PSR, but also because of the fact that nobody else in Europe pays money like we pay, and eventually that has got to come to an end. And people, even Infantino and Ceferin are all talking about it now. Deflation of wages, deflation of transfer fees. They want to bring everything under a sustainable umbrella. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens over the course of the next few years, because what they're trying desperately to do is level everybody up. I'm not sure the Premier League will be too happy about that. Talking about not happy, Everton fans won't be too happy about this. Everton won Luton 2. I know they'll be concentrating more on staying in the Premier League, both of them really. But, I mean, I do feel like Everton have just gone into a little bit of a tough period here where form has really dipped. And although they're in a relatively strong position, they think they might get a couple of points back or whatever, and they've put some points on the board. They're certainly in better overall form. They've won more games, obviously, than those down the bottom of the table. Psychologically, the closer you get, the more things start to go against you. You'll start to worry about that drop, won't you?
Yeah, it felt like a real sucker punch, and I heard the Everton fans calling up talkSPORT at the weekend, not at all happy, not happy with the Premier League for what they see as tardiness in approving the 777 Sport takeover, and they weren't happy with Sean Dyche for the way that he set the team out, and obviously weren't happy that they've been knocked out the FA Cup, another football club, big football club, historically starved of success. 1995, last time they won anything meaningful under Joe Royle. And also psychologically, to get beat at home by a team that you're in direct competition with to stay in the Premier League, I think that could have a knock-on effect as well. So I worry for Everton in the second half of the season. I really
makes a difference, that, doesn't it? It just sort of sends a message that you that you don't want. It's the idea of going home, trying to sort of entertain your fans. Look, we can get through to the FA Cup 5th round. They haven't really. It's not like they've got loads and loads of games to play, Everton. I mean, it's one a week, isn't it, between now and the end of the season, really, with a couple of midweek adventures, this one being one, and then the one in the beginning of April. So the idea of playing in the FA Cup surely has got to be attractive to a club like that. And I just felt like sometimes, I know they went for it towards the end and they put a lot of pressure on Luton but didn't get the goal. But it's just, again, it's deflating, isn't it, for those supporters who have had so much that they've had to overcome this season. A good day for Brighton away at Sheffield United. They won by 5 goals to 2. and they played some sensational football as well during the course of this game. I mean, if you look at some of the moves that led up to the goals, penalty, the first goal, I mean, just looking at the way that they moved the football around, it was excellent from Brighton. And João Pedro scoring a hat-trick again, looking like a superstar forward, Scott. I mean, they've got a real gem on their hands here.
Well, they have, and in Brighton's terms, they spent a lot of money. What was it, Crookie? 30 million, something like that. But he's well worth every penny. The way he is at the moment, he certainly knows how to take a penalty, doesn't he? He's calm as you like, and nice for him to score a goal in open play. But I think his general play is very, very good. He slips into that Brighton philosophy excellently. I mean, the Brennan-Otter goal was incredible, and this was Brighton at their very best. You talk about Sheffield United, and we all think that they'll go down. Massive game for them on Tuesday against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. So I don't think necessarily Chrissy Wilder would be overly bothered about getting knocked out, but you don't want to be conceding 5 goals. And the fact that they got back into it, I think he will be disappointed they didn't go on and win it. But for Brighton, absolutely. Love watching them play. And in this form, they can trouble anybody in the Premier League.
Yeah, and maybe trouble anybody in the FA Cup because they've got a good draw in the next round of the competition as well. So I think they've got Wolverhampton Wanderers away. They'll absolutely love that. They beat them there 4-1 earlier in the season. And although it was a 0-0 draw on Monday when I was down at the Amex Stadium, I think I think they prefer better games like that than they do playing against lower league side because it allows them to sort of get the juices flowing and play their fast-flowing football. We'll see what happens there. On to the rest of Sunday now, and we start at the Hawthorns. I do have a question to ask Scott and Alex about London's relationship with the FA Cup, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But Wolverhampton Wanderers obviously going through after victory over West Brom. Look, I was there, I was commentating, and it was really sad, really, because, I mean, it wasn't a great game of football. It's 77 minutes of, it was quite sort of controlled from Wolves. They sort of plotted a course through it. I think they were trying to take the sting out of the game and then hit when they could. They didn't move the ball fast enough. West Brom certainly didn't move the ball fast enough and didn't really create any meaningful opportunities. Pedro Neto's goal, I think, is terrific. I thought that Cunha's finish is good, but you shouldn't really get in that easily in behind the two centre-backs. But then you have the overspill. And I think it came about from frustration from the West Brom fans that they really didn't lay a glove on Wolves over the course of the game. But they are scenes that we thought were eradicated from this country.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible watching on television. And then when you guys went back to the studio, I turned on talkSPORT, and I have to say, I think Nigel Adderley, Dean Ashton and Faye did a brilliant job of conveying what were very disturbing scenes. You get a situation where kids are being plucked from the stand, including kids of players in the case of Carl Bartley, and you just can't condone that. And actually, what was most alarming to me, I called it out in quite strong terms on social media, and the number of replies I had from fans saying, "Oh, it's a derby. What did you expect?" Like, it's all part of the fun. That appalled me as well, because anybody who condones that kind of action, those kind of scenes, is not a proper football fan, and is just a moron, to be honest. And I feel for anybody who was innocently caught up in it, and it's just not what you want to see. You understand now why the police kicked off the game at 11:45 in the morning. Maybe they should have kicked it off at 7:45 in the morning. But anybody who was involved in it, you're an absolute disgrace to football and a disgrace to your club.
Yeah, it was disturbing, and there's no doubt about it. And I spotted a kid who was taken out of the crowd by, I thought at the time it was his dad, and he just walked straight out of that melee and onto the pitch. And last night I got a message on Instagram, and it was from that guy, and he said, "Look, I've watched back the footage from today, and I've seen that you were talking about what I think is my kid and me." He said, "I just thought taking him onto the pitch was the safest place to go. He's all good, thank you. He's a little shaken at the time, but by the time the players came out later on to see them and take photos, he was okay. People were just in a blind rage and didn't care that they were jumping on disabled people in wheelchairs, pensioners and kids. Could only see that one lad in the stand, and as you saw, they were running from every stand to try and get him. I know you shouldn't go onto the pitch, but it was the safest place for me to take my kid. And that was from the guy who had to take his little child out onto the pitch because he was worried about what was going on around him. I mean, that in itself sort of tells you everything, doesn't it, Scott?
Well, I don't care what you should or shouldn't do. When it comes to something like that, you do what's right for your family and for your children especially. So he did do the right thing. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things for me. I'm hearing that pubs were allowed to be open at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's the case. Alcohol can fuel and exaggerate behaviour. But the bigger one for me is, and I still don't know, were there Wolves fans in that area, in the West Brom area? And if so, how on earth do they get the tickets? I don't know. But the bottom line is, absolutely, we shouldn't be seeing stuff like this. It's back to the dark ages. We're not back to the dark ages, by the way, but with such a fueled derby that we haven't seen for a long time, everybody needed to be on their toes. And it's difficult to talk about it because I still don't know, as I say, the answers to some of the questions. But, he did the right thing, and it was terrible to see. And well done, by the way, Sam. I was watching it. I thought you handled it really well as well.
I thought the police reacted really quickly, and I thought they got over it as quick as they could. But there was just so much fighting between police and supporters. Now, I can only guess, and I'd been told beforehand that there was a possibility of Wolves fans being in the home end. And it did look like that was the case because there were people that were being pushed and pulled out. There was at least 2 that I saw, and I don't know if there's any more than that. But then everybody just sort of congregated and went to charge at him. It was stretched. That was the family section of the ground as well, which was really embarrassing. I mean, can you imagine if you're a long-standing West Brom fan and you see 1 or 2 people from the opposing club in your family stand, and you decide that that's a good idea to trample over everybody to try and get to them. Just have a look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, is that really what you should be doing? Not sure it is. I mean, it's a bit unacceptable to think that just because, I mean, okay, he got into the wrong end. There's a bloke in the wrong end. He's bought a ticket. Shouldn't do it. Get him out. Throw him out. That's it. That's the end of it. At the end of the day, there's no need for it to burst into what it burst into. And there was a guy who I saw who came out of the crowd at the other end of the ground, because it wasn't just at one end. It happened again at the other end. It came out the sort of corner of the Smethwick end, and he was bald-headed, big guy, was being taken away, I think, by police. The paramedics might have been there as well. He had blood streaming from his head. So, come on. And you're right about the pubs thing, all right? We can all sort of laugh and joke about it. And I sort of almost made a joke about it during the course of the commentary. The atmosphere was great and whatever. And I said, well, that's what happens if you open the pubs at 5:30. But if you're going to kick off a game at 11:45 and people still can't behave, well, actually, you can't allow anything to open before it's supposed to. You can't do it because otherwise we get scenes like this. And, we're lucky that yesterday all it was a bit of a skirmish. I think one man ended up in hospital with head injuries. I hope that person is okay. But it could have been worse than that. And the police have had to deal with stuff that they didn't want to deal with. The game was delayed for 38 minutes. I mean, it was just... It is. I'm sorry, and the Crook is absolutely right when he turns around and says the responses that I got. I mean, some of the stuff that I got sent to me afterwards was as if we should expect this to happen, and we should just almost sort of be voyeurs and watch it and enjoy it. And it's like, that's a very strange way. I mean, it is 2024. Anyway, we'll move on. Liverpool 5, Norwich 2, a game filled with action and probably more importantly, goals. Darwin Núñez scored a terrific goal, Scott. What do you want to say about his performance? He was good. He's been good twice this week.
I don't need to speak about him. His performances and his finishes are speaking on my behalf. Look, again, I see the talent there, and I haven't heard yet an ex-pro giving him a lot of stick, apart from being able to be more clinical, and stick the ball in the back of the net a bit better. He would be a nightmare to play against. He's big, he's strong, he can run the channels, he can be skillful, he can come out to the left and cut inside on his right. So yeah, listen, I'm really pleased he's doing well for Liverpool. What I would say is I was really impressed with James McConnell. This was in the heart of midfield at Anfield. And for him to be bossing the game in the way that he did, I think there's another star there. And Jurgen Klopp leaving, well, I actually think, I'd be interested to see what Crookie thinks. I think he's leaving Liverpool in a better place that Fergie left United. So we'll have to wait and see who the next Liverpool manager is. But Conor Bradley, another great performance. You and I touched on the fact of, is he the man to allow Trent to go into midfield? Well, if he carries on playing like this, he might be that man to do just that.
I love the fact that after sitting on his phone trying to find a transfer story, as soon as you mentioned the word Fergie, his eyes lit up and he just glared through the camera at you. Well, I think I talked about Liverpool on the pre-game podcast, in which I said that I thought that Jurgen Klopp's done a brilliant job in sort of rejuvenating that midfield, adding those attacking talents. I mean, to say that he has left them in a better place than Fergie, I mean, obviously is going to cause controversy with our learned friend over there, but certainly he has. It looks as if he was determined to rebuild it, I think, rather than leave last summer after a really disappointing season, and he's done that, and he's sort of put the pieces in place for somebody else then to go and knock it on further. As far as the announcement was concerned, we haven't really had a chance to talk about it yet, so we probably should now. I was really surprised. I did say, I think, in the summer that he needed to have a really good season. Otherwise, it might come to an end this year. But I don't think I ever believed that he was going to walk away like this, Crook.
No, it was dramatic, wasn't it, in terms of the timing as well? I'm still cynical. I think the reason it's come out now is because a journalist got hold of the story and Liverpool wanted to control the narrative. I mean, you've been waxing lyrical about Liverpool. I still don't think they'll win the league. So I don't think Klopp is going to go out in a blaze of glory like Fergie did.
Is that hope or expectation?
Well, no expectation. I think City will win the league. But, if he does, it will look better on his CV, winning 2 Premier League titles in 9 years than just the one. I did see a tweet the other day, Klopp's won 1 Champions League and 1 Premier League in 9 years. Fergie did that in 9 days. So do I think Jurgen Klopp will be remembered in the same way as Sir Alex Fergurson and Arsene Wenger and Pep Guardiola? I think the answer is no, because I think they probably should have won more trophies than they have.
Oh,
wow.
Dear. That is just... Do you know what? The only thing I'll say to you here, Crook, is you've got to remember context. When he took over the club 9 years ago, they hadn't won it since 1990. They've
come very close under Brendan Rodgers a couple of seasons before.
They did.
Very
They
close.
come close,
Should
but
have
they
won it.
never did it. They came close under Gerard Houllier, but they didn't do it. They came close under Rafa Benitez, but they didn't do it. The fact is that he got them over the line, which I think is something that they needed. And he won the Champions League and got to 3 finals. I mean, he's done a terrific job. I know that over the course of the last 9 years, Manchester United have won more titles than that. No. Listen, Scott, we could wax lyric all day about Jurgen Klopp. Everybody's done that. I think he probably is just in need of a break after an intense period working in the Premier League. I think we'll see him again at some point, probably at Germany or maybe at one of the big clubs in Spain.
Yeah, and I think that's a real shame that we might not see him. We probably won't see him again in the Premier League. And I'm a proud Englishman, and I want an Englishman to be the manager of my country. But I'd be quite happy for Jurgen Klopp to be manager of England. So I hope these shores haven't seen the last of him. I think he's incredibly charismatic as well as playing great football. I think that Fergie didn't come up against the greatest team I think we've ever seen in English football with Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. But I don't want to detract from what Sir Alex Fergurson done. Incredible manager. But I think Jurgen Klopp would be up there if Pep Guardiola wasn't around.
Chelsea 0, Aston Villa 0. Scott, sum it up for me.
Not great.
Okay. The replay is incoming. That will be, I think, maybe on Wednesday or Thursday of next week. We'll find out today. Later on in the week, we'll bring you a preview to all the weekend's action, and we'll look back on what was a really busy week in the Premier League, because there's action Tuesday night, Wednesday night and Thursday night. So we'll do that Friday morning. So look out for that on your podcast suppliers. Crook, enjoy your racing today and the rest of your week off. I know that, usually at this time it's really busy, but it's January and no one's buying anything.
He's actually got a busy week with the Premier League having a midweek as well. He's just been.
Well, we had to give him games because he's not doing any transfer news, so we might as well give him something to do. All right, we'll see you Friday.